Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. We are so excited to dive into what to do if you inherit some Vernier sensors. Today, we have two awesome panelists with us. But before we hop into the presentation, I want to encourage you to navigate to the bottom of your Zoom window. At the bottom of that window, you'll see what looks like a little chat bubble. If you click that chat bubble, that's where you can send messages, and that's how we'll be taking questions today. I ask that when you send that chat, make sure that your audience, it says two and then like a little blue button, and it might say hosts and panelists. Make sure you click hosts and panelists and change it to everyone. We specifically ask this because we don't want to look like we're talking to ourselves when we answer your questions. So please make sure everyone can see your question. It's also just a really great way to build community. So someone else might be wondering the same thing, and they'll be happy to see that other people want to learn. To practice this new skill, go ahead and in the chat, let me know, are you already back in school? And if not, what day do you go back to school? Rebecca H says hi. Hi, Rebecca. Who else? Chris is back in school for 2 weeks now. You go, Chris.
Oh,
Lisa's third day back. I hope it is going awesome. Rebecca has one more day. Final days of summer. Let's see, we're getting August 18th, September 4th, another August 18th. You guys are twins. September 2nd, August 20th, the 25th, Thursday and Friday for freshmen only. Let's see, the 21st. Some people are in week 2. I see more August 18th. That's awesome. Well, welcome back to school, everyone. We hope you have an amazing start to the school year. And as always, we are here to help answer any questions. Hopefully, today we help you solve a few uh, problems or anything you have. Um, it looks like we're about a minute past the hour, so I'll hop into some housekeeping items. As always, you will get a recording of today's webinar. It usually takes us about 3 to 5 business days to get that edited and uploaded, but as soon as it's available, it'll be live on both our YouTube channel and our website. Once it's ready, we're also going to email it out to you, so keep an eye out in your inbox. In about 3 to 5 business days, you're going to get a recording. Also, in that email, you're going to get a link to a resources folder. In that folder, I've dropped a certificate of attendance in there if you're using this webinar for professional development. And I also dropped the presentation today in case you want to try any of the links in there. You can follow along yourself. As soon as I'm done talking, I'm going to drop that link in the chat, so keep an eye on that if you want to follow along. On top of that, as I said before, please use the chat box to ask us your questions. We've got amazing presenters that can answer your questions, so make use of that chat box. If we happen to not get to a question, please reach out to us at support@vernier.com. So we are here to help. Stick around. We are doing a giveaway at the end of the webinar for people that are still in the Zoom room. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys just before the end of the hour. With that being said, I will hand off the presentation to today's presenters, and thank you again for joining us.
good afternoon, everybody. My name's Colleen McDaniel. I am a biology and environmental science specialist here at Vernier. I have been at Vernier for almost 12 years now, and before that, I was teaching in Houston, Texas, where I taught pre-AP biology, grade level biology, and AP environmental science. And then
I'm Dave Vernier. I'm founder of Vernier Software and Technology, and I've been here 44 years. But I was a teacher for 12 years in high school in physics in both Cleveland, Ohio, and in Hillsboro, Oregon.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for coming in. And this is a question that we get asked a lot. What did I just walk into? Because basically we have so many teachers that are entering the classroom new or changing to different schools, and they might find a cupboard of mystery boxes. And a lot of times they might have Vernier with a name on them. And then we'll get contact of what is this stuff? So we're going to talk today about, where do you start, how to identify what you have, what labs are there, how to make sure that the equipment still works, and kind of go over some troubleshooting and how to use it. One of the biggest things I tell people is the number one thing to do when you find something and you don't know where to start is you give us a call, email us, or you can even chat us on our website. We are here to help you understand everything.
Colleen, I'll just jump in to say, and a great way to do that is to get the stuff and put it in a box and have it right there when you call, or even better, Zoom, so that you can hold up something and ask us, what the heck is this thing? And we pretty much know what they are by the look, and we can say, yeah, that's usable, or that's, no, that's not gonna work, or whatever. So that's a quick way to get the problem solved.
So I'm going to hand it to Dave.
Well, I'm going to talk mostly here about sensors. We've been making sensors for about 40 years, so there's a whole lot of sensors, probably in the order of 100, no, over 800. If you add up the old ones, a couple hundred, over the years, styles of sensors. And many of them, the great thing is I think we've been pretty darn good about longevity. We really work hard to keep things going because we know schools can't afford to and don't want to have to replace sensors every couple years. So I've got things kind of clumped into 3 categories here, and we'll go through that. But on the screen now, I think you see some of our what we call Go Direct sensors. Those are the newest ones. We started this line of sensors about 2015, I think. And now we have something like 50 of them, I think.
Oh, more than
More,
that.
60, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, and these are all, they're Go Direct sensors. They can be connected by USB to a computer or a Chromebook, but they also can be connected by Bluetooth to lots of things, including computers, Chromebooks, iPads, and even cell phones. So they're the latest. Obviously, they work and you use them with graphical analysis. And if you have those, you have nothing to do except jump in and start using them. Let's go to the next slide. Now, in general, you may find some sensors with a white connector with 6 pins on it there. I've got pictures of 2 of them. If you look closely, there's 2 different styles. One of them we call a BTA for British Telecom Analog, and the other one we call a BTD for British Telecom Digital. And those are digital and analog sensors. And the unique thing is that they look for that white connector with 6 pins and a kind of a tab on the side. Those were meant to plug into what we call lab interfaces. Lab interfaces, the most famous one now is called LabQuest. Before that, there were things called Lab Pros, and there's a thing called a GoLink. But that white connector is the key. If you have that white connector, there's about a 98% chance that it's going to work with modern stuff like a Chromebook or a modern computer, and you would use it with our graphical analysis program.
Aren't there other sensors also, a couple of them that have a USB attached to them too?
Okay, a special category, I did take a class, we have a Go Motion, a Go Link, and a Go Temp. Those are I maybe should have made a special slide for those. They're kind of obscure, but those are 3 direct into USB connectors, sensors. They would work with either a Mac computer, Windows computer, or a Chromebook, but obviously not with a cell phone or anything like that. And then finally, I come to the 3rd class, and now we're really into old stuff here. These are sensors that were mostly made in the last millennium. I think we quit making these about 2002 or 3. And in general, you're just not going to get those to work. Notice the connectors. They tend to be round. That one there has 5 pins. That's called a DIN connector. That stands for Deutsche International, I think. And the other one is like a stereo. We call that a stereo phone plug. Those are, I hate to say it, but you're not going to get those to work with modern, at least with our modern graphical analysis program. If you happen to have an old interface like a Lab Pro You continue to use those, but you have to use our older program called Logger Pro. Logger Pro was extremely popular for 25 years or so, 30 years almost. It's still around, but we know sooner or later it's going to quit working. We just can't keep it going. And Windows and Mac operating systems change, and we know sooner or later that's just not going to work. So we don't think that's the way to go. And I think if I had those sensors there, I would move on to something else. So I mentioned the word interfaces a couple of times. In the old days, the only way you could connect sensors was to plug them into some kind of lab interface. And there's some pictures of some, and I'll let Colleen say some words about them.
Okay, so basically I made the slides so we categorize them into 3 different categories. The first column here are going to be connectors that you can only use one sensor at a time and are going to be more limited of what sensors you can use with them. So these links here will only work with a BTA sensor. While this middle group of sensors are sensor interfaces that have to be connected to a computer or a Chromebook, for example, to actually be able to function with the sensor. And then our last column here is what we call our standalone interfaces. So these are all interfaces that do not need a computer to work. They can work by themselves and act as standalone, but they can also work like this middle section as well and connect directly to a computer. The big thing I like to point out here is that of these interfaces, we do have some that are discontinued. The Lab Pro was discontinued.
I would guess 2000s. Yeah, maybe
12 years. I feel like it discontinued right when I started.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. The LabQuest Mini first version was just recently discontinued and replaced with the LabQuest Mini 2. And then our LabQuest Stream has been discontinued as well. And then with the standalone interfaces, we have the original LabQuest, which are the ones I had in my classroom. And I have many people that are still using those. And the LabQuest 2 is our most recent standalone that got discontinued and replaced with the LabQuest 3. Now, just because it's been discontinued doesn't mean it's not going to work. We still will help you troubleshoot and figure out how to work with them. The key though is there are 2 interfaces that are very specific of what they'll work with. So an EasyLink was made specifically to work with TI calculators. And the Lab Pro will only work with computers and Logger Pro. The USB technology on it is old enough that it just won't work with modern day Chromebooks and with our new more modern software. And I saw a good question there, how you do distinguish between a LabQuest Mini and a Mini 2. One is there's a name change on it. So the LabQuest Mini says Model 2 on it for the Mini 2. The other thing is that the LabQuest Mini 2 is about half the size of the original LabQuest Mini as well.
The Mini 2, I think, is about the size of a deck of cards.
Yeah.
And the other one's quite a bit bigger, yeah.
So if you don't have anything to compare it to, what I would do is just look at the label. All right, so that kind of gives some general idea of the different types of sensors and interfaces that you might encounter. The next thing you need is software to be able to run these sensors and use them. So most of our software titles do have downloadable programs. More specifically, we consider them apps that you can access from our main web page by just clicking on downloads, and that would take you to these different applications availability. And so in back, like Dave had mentioned before with Logger Pro, that was kind of our original, well, one of the more original software programs that we had. And as the years have gone by, we haven't been able to update that anymore with all the changing operating systems. So essentially what we've done is broken out the components that make up Logger Pro and turn them into different individual apps. And quick pause here, we have a question about the Lab Pro. Change the BTD in the newer software. Yes, the LabQuest Mini is what Keisha, basically I think of the LabQuest Mini is your direct replacement for Lab Pros. So that's what I've been recommending people to do is if they have Lab Pros to start making that transition to getting LabQuest Minis. Or if you do not have any BTD sensors, you can go a cheaper option and go a GoLink. Okay, so back to our apps. We basically have taken aspects of Logger Pro and turned them into individual apps that go with their specific function. Graphical analysis is going to be the one that is the most commonly used. It's used for your most data collection, graphing features, and analysis features. We have two versions of it. There's the free application called just graphical analysis, which does, I would say, for most people, everything that you need it to do. And then we have a graphical analysis pro, which is a subscription model that opens up some more advanced features that people tend to want to use, such as, I'm trying to think now, they can do data sharing over the internet.
Well, there's
For
some
physics,
advanced
FFT.
features like that. Let's see what else. Some better curve fits and notes, things like that.
Yeah.
Some
Some
extra
features. Yeah, some extra features. Then we have Vernier video analysis, which is a very popular app for physics, and that is a paid app. And then we have spectral analysis, which is going to be used for spectrometers, and instrumental analysis, which is going to be used with advanced instruments, mostly in the chemistry area. Now, what's great about these is they are all downloadable, but we also have them available as progressive web apps. So I know somebody asked about students with Chromebooks. So Chromebooks, you can't download apps onto anymore. So with Chromebooks and regular computers as well, you can just type into the web browser the name of the app. So for example, if I was going to do graphical analysis, I would just type graphicalanalysis.app into my Chrome browser address bar. And that way you don't have to have IT involved to be able to have permissions to download any of these applications, and students can easily access them. So Matt, good question. All of the apps are free except for the GA Pro features and Vernier video analysis.
I jump in to say, we didn't do these progressive web apps where you go to a website, nothing to download because we wanted to. It's because Google pretty much forced us to, because they announced several years ago actually that they were not going to allow downloading of anything onto the Chromebooks because of fear about viruses or whatever, and just they like to control things, especially in a school situation. So it's pretty great. You don't have to worry about getting the right download. Your IT guy doesn't have to go around and download new versions of software all the time. It just you always are running the latest version, but it's running on the web. So it's kind of amazing technology.
Do you have a temperature probe in your box of goodies?
I do.
What fit with a put one over there.
Sure, yes.
So I have a couple people ask me kind of how it's going to look. So I am going to launch graphical analysis in my web app. So I don't know why it just went to Vernier, Australia. So I am going to graphical analysis,
I have lots of probes.
not app.
But,
Oh, that works
is
too.
that okay?
That works. It's old, but it works. And so I'm just going to go to that as like a web address and press enter. And Vernier graphical analysis is going to launch. I am going to connect a Go link with a pH probe attached. And I'm going to plug that into the USB of my computer. And I'm going to click on sensor data collection. And I have connected something by USB, by a Go link. There's my Go link, and I'm going to connect to it.
I hate to say it, but we picked the most boring sensor.
I know, we picked the most
possible.
boring sensor
Because
possible.
we have a sensor with a pH and a pH in the bottle, and it can't possibly
Yeah.
change, but
Oh, wow.
anyway.
So that is how you connect, and all of the same features that you might have been used to using on a LabQuest or a Logger Pro.
Colleen, please just turn on the meter there.
Oh, yeah.
So that people can at least see a reading.
Thank
And
you.
I happen to know that we put pH 4 buffer in those bottles, so I think it's working right.
I think it is working right for a very old pH probe too.
Yeah.
So I've got pH 4 buffer here, and it's kind of the same process that allows students to change their data collection parameters. So we can go around and I can go to my data collection settings. I can change all of my settings here, change my different time units, all of that. I can also go to event-based if I want to do event-based data collection. There's a lot of different features that are very similar and identical to what you would see in Logger Pro or on the LabQuest. But
just to show something a little more interesting, I
There, we do
have
a light
a
sensor.
light sensor. So at least we can have
That'll
a
be more
signal
cool.
change.
And so here we go. We go meter again, turn that on.
And maybe do collect there.
We're gonna point towards our bright LEDs. And then I can point to the ground. Up.
I think it's, yeah,
There we go.
probably on 600 range,
Yep.
so it can't go any higher,
Yeah.
much higher.
So you can do really easy, and this is again the free version, and here I can go and view statistics. I can do a lot of that same analysis that I was able to do in my other programs as well.
And that probe could be 20 years old. We don't know.
We don't know.
But it's an old light sensor.
Yeah.
We still sell a light sensor like that, but this one looks old to me.
So the good news is the majority of your sensors the majority of your sensors, if they're newer than 2002, should still work with the new app. The key is they have to be able to auto-identify, so they essentially have to know what they are. They have to have their own identity. LabQuest interfaces, any of the LabQuest interfaces, be it LabQuest or the original LabQuest, LabQuest 2, LabQuest 3, LabQuest Minis, and Go links will all work with Chromebooks and these old sensors. Same thing with the USB sensors that we talked about, Go Temp, Go Motion, and then also all of the Go Direct sensors. And you're able to use the sensors at the same time as well. So for example, if you find a mixture of Go Direct sensors and LabQuest sensors, you can actually match, you can use them at the same time. You are able to mix and match. It makes connecting a little bit more cumbersome because you have to tell it to connect different ways, but they will work together.
Colleen, I see we're getting a lot of
Yeah, we're
questions,
getting
but
a
I
lot
don't
of
think we
questions.
can answer all those now,
Yes.
but we promise we'll get back to you on every single one of those questions.
Yes.
But we may not be able to do it during this video session.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions that I'm hopefully going to be able to answer later as we're going through. So we don't like get too far ahead of ourselves.
Right. I see some physics ones and I will jump in and answer those by tomorrow.
And like I said, all of these apps are available as progressive web apps. So even if you don't use Chromebooks, if you have MacBooks or Windows computers in your classroom, or students have their own devices, you can still use these apps without having to get IT involved by just going to the progressive web app. Okay, so this comes up to the question of kind of what John was asking us here about labs. What about labs? So the majority of, yes, the app will work on an iPad. The majority of our books have been updated and rewritten for instructions for graphical analysis. The instructions are been rewritten so that the students actually, it walks the students through setting up their account or their experiment parameters. We don't have the saved files like you might be used to in Logger Pro, primarily because it's an application instead of a software program, so that doesn't have the memory to be able to hold on to all of those. And it also is really difficult for us to constantly keep those files updated when sensors are changing a lot. So the good news is if you find sensors at your school, there's a really good chance you already might have lab books. And the way to do that is to access those is to actually create an account on our website. So on our website, you go to log in and register, and you want to create an account with your school email. Once you go into your school email, you will have the My Downloads option under My Account. And there is where we can find all of the applications and, all of the software and labs that you would have access to. So you can jump down to lab books, and this gives you access to a lot of the, it gives you access to the entire book. If you don't have access to lab book, I would still suggest contact us. We can look at your school and see if there is a book on file for the school or the campus, and we can make sure you get access to it. The other way is that the books are available for purchase. They are a site license, so you just have to buy one copy for the school. And I believe the electronic copies are like $40, $45 around there. So they're really inexpensive, but super useful because they include not only student instructions that walk the students through how to set them up, but also teacher instructions as well that go through how to, like for chemistry and biology, how to create solutions, or for physics, like little tips and tricks of ways if you're not getting the exact right data that you're looking for. So the other big question is, when you find these sensors, do they actually work? So there are a lot of things that you can just contact us. And like Dave said in the beginning, if you have them in front of you, that's super useful because we can walk through with you how to troubleshoot and see what might be going on for that. The next few slides, for time's sake, I'm going to go a little fast instead of slow, but these cover some of the most common troubleshooting that we see with certain sensors. So the first question you always might have is, does the sensor work? And really the only way for us to be able to tell that is if you plug it in and you can find out. So for example, the pH probe that Dave handed to me, we plugged it in, it identified as a pH probe and it read a pH 4. So on the surface, that probe works. The light sensor, we plugged it in, it read as a light sensor. I was able to collect data, and that shows me that it works. Now, there are some special cases of sensors that do have what we would consider kind of a lifespan with them, or might have parts that need to be replaced over time. And those are going to have some special circumstances. So if you come across things like pH probes, oxygen gas sensors, ion selective electrodes, colorimeters and spectrometers, and standalone LabQuest, those are all ones that we might want to take a little bit more of a dive into actually checking them out and seeing where they are.
I'll just jump in to say that you'll notice that they're mostly chemistry and biology sensors. It turns out the physics sensors pretty much last forever, with the exception of, you know, once the Go Direct ones now have batteries, and sooner or later those will die, but that
Those can
doesn't
be
happen much, and that's replaceable.
Yeah, the batteries are
Yeah.
totally
So
replaceable.
it is kind of funny that almost all the things that only last so long are they're based on a chemical reaction, and they sooner or later use up whatever chemical, and they have to replace something.
Basically, Dave is saying that the chemistry and biology people are the problem children, while physics is fantastic. So for your pH sensors, for example, we have this great flow chart that one of our chemists put together to be able to walk you through checking your pH probe to see if it's functional and still works. Sorry, I'm going to quick jump in there. No, if you're not using if you're doing AP, do not do advanced biology. You want to use biology with inquiry, and contact me specifically so I can give you some lab ideas. Sorry, Fran. I have actually the new AP standards and the labs associated with it that I can give you links of what sensors we have available. So with your pH sensors, back to that, first thing you want to do is inspect it to make sure that it has a storage solution in it. The pH probe is one of our few sensors that has to be stored wet. Very specifically, it has to have a pH 4 buffer solution. Ooh, that's got some nice mold on it. A pH 4 buffer solution with potassium chloride on it. We sell the solution. You can also just make the solution. That is a very, very important aspect. If the vial is dry, there is a chance we could bring it back to life, but there's a very small chance we can bring it back to life. And by we, I mean you, by exposing it to hydrochloric acid. The other thing to note is if the bulb is still intact. A lot of times since I was teaching in Houston, one thing that is guaranteed to grow in Houston is mold. And so for some reason, that pH 4 buffer is like the perfect conditions for mold growth. And so I would actually have to change out my pH storage solution at least twice a year. And then actually rinse my pH probes in a dilute bleach solution to try to kill off the mold when I could. When you have the pH probe plugged in, the thing Dave was talking about of how, oh, it's reading 4, it's good. That is true. If your storage solution is right, you should be reading around a pH of 4. If it's not reading pH 4, you'll want to try to calibrate it. The other big thing to note is do not store the sensor in DI water. That will actually decrease the life of the sensor. And over time, you'll see that the sensor does drift, so it does need to be calibrated as time goes.
I'll just jump in to say another thing that people do a lot is use water as if it's going to be pH 7. And water, just plain old water, is probably the worst thing to check the pH of, because it can fluctuate wildly just by what you bring over with the pH probe. So always use buffers that are, 4, 7, 10 buffers for checking your pH probe.
Exactly. And so on this slide, you'll see there's lots of different links that I've put here. All of these links will take you to information on our website that helps explain all of those things. Again, calibration, it's really simple to do. We have videos posted on our website on how to calibrate our LabQuest pH sensors with a LabQuest device and how to do Go Direct ones as well. pH sensors are something that we get so many questions about. We actually did an entire webinar just on taking care of pH sensors. So for those of you who feel so inclined, the link is there. Oxygen gas sensors are another one of our sensors that has a lifespan on it. It's one of those that it has to be used and stored upright because like Dave was talking about, it has a chemical matrix inside of it that if it's laid on its side, that matrix moves and will give you weird readings and incorrect readings. So you want to make sure it's always stored upright. It should read around 20.9%, but over time that's going to degrade. So it does need calibrating every so often. The good news is that this sensor is one of our few sensors that can actually be refurbished. So if you have a pH sensor that is 6 to 8 years old, you might need to look into getting it refurbished. And we can tell that by looking at some values when you plug it in to calibrate it. And the refurbishment, I say, costs around $100, and you just send it to us, we fix it up and send it right back to you. And again, lots of videos on how to do your calibration there. ISEs are a little more infrequently used. Those are going to be more chemistry use. All of our ion selective electrodes, except one, have modules on them. And these modules have a shelf life of pretty much 2 years and have to have that module be replaced all the time. Basically, we see sometimes people will buy modules ahead of time. You don't want to do that because the module will expire even if you're not using it. It's one of those that just sitting on the shelf, it's going to die.
It really is a shelf life.
It really is a shelf life.
It's not a time used, it's a shelf life. Yeah.
And this one is a sensor that does need to be calibrated pretty much every time before you use it. Again, we have links and information on how to take care of that. Spectrophotometers, lots of information on the slide. Basically, spectrometers have lamps in them that can burn out over time, over use. So they do over time need to be refurbished as well. We also have lots of troubleshooting tips on spectrometer use. Our spectrometers have to be used with the spectral analysis app. And a lot of times we have people that get some weird data or some wonky data. The key is to follow the steps in these websites here. It gives a great troubleshooting, and that way too you can look at your lamp output, and that gives you an idea of basically the current state or health of your spectrometer as well. The colorimeter also has light sources in it. We don't see that burnout as quickly because those are just LEDs. The thing we see most often with the colorimeters is students not removing cuvettes from them. And so liquid will actually spill into the sensor itself and cause it to corrode. Not good. LabQuest. So I saw a couple questions about, or comments about your LabQuest 2s acting up or not acting right. LabQuests need care too. What's really important is making sure they're running the most recent update available for them. And that includes original LabQuest, LabQuest 2, and LabQuest 3. You can find all of the updates for the recent software on our website. They are a free download. LabQuest 2s, we have a lovely flow chart for you to walk through to help do some of the most basic common troubleshooting we do see with those units. We do have a smaller one for the original LabQuest. The good news is LabQuest 2s are still repairable. So if there is something wrong with it, we can still get it in, get it looked at, and get it fixed up. The original LabQuests, sadly, are beyond that. We cannot find the parts anymore to do repairs on them. So once they break, there's nothing we can really do for those.
They came out in 2007.
Yep. I got the first batch when I was teaching. The biggest thing on the LabQuest actually is, and this is the standalone LabQuest, is their batteries. So With the original LabQuest, even though we can't repair them anymore, we still have batteries available for them. We also have batteries for LabQuest 2s, and the LabQuest 3 has a bigger battery. Now, what we have found over the years in our experience is battery care is key to making sure you also have a functional LabQuest. The best steps are to make sure that students completely power down the LabQuest when it's not going to be used. When you're storing it for a long period of time or over the summer when there might not be climate control in the classroom, you want to actually take the battery out of the unit to help prevent it from expanding or swelling. They are lithium ion batteries, so you don't want them plugged in and charging constantly. You want to make sure that they are unplugged, and you want to store those batteries within a controlled environment as much as possible. A lot of questions we get is, when should we replace the battery? And our batteries are warranted for a year, but they last much longer than that. The key thing that I have found to look at is the date on the back of the battery. So all of the batteries are going to have a 4-digit code on them. The first 2 digits apply to the week of the year. The last 2 digits are of the year. So this LabQuest battery here is from the 32nd week of 2013. That is a very old battery. I tend to recommend that if your batteries are older than 5 years, you probably want to start looking at working into your budget, a budget item to actually be able to replace all the batteries. One thing I forgot to put a slide in for it was the Go Direct batteries, because those are also lithium ion and those can also be replaced as well. So we talk about repair. For the repair process, one of the biggest things we ask is you just troubleshoot, call us. We can walk you through some of that troubleshooting as well. Having specific details is really helpful for us. Just saying something doesn't work does not give us any information. It's kind of like, a student, coming to you and saying, oh, this is broke, it doesn't work. It's like, well, why? Why doesn't it work? Why doesn't it work? Also, in some cases, there is a cost associated with repair. In some cases, there isn't. It just depends. Most of our items have a 5-year warranty on them. So as long as it's something that is basically a default of the sensor itself, and within that 5 years, we can do a repair. There are some situations like, for example, a CO2 sensor that is meant to measure CO2 gas, the air. If it's put in water, that's going to void the warranty because it can't be read in water. We do recommend recognizing that it does take some time for us to do repairs. There are some repairs we do in-house, and there's other ones that we actually have to ship to a different company. So in some cases, repairs might take 3 weeks. In other cases, they might take up to 6 or longer.
I'll just jump in to say, we have 4 guys here that do repairs. The newest one has been here 15 years. These guys know how to fix things. And another thing is, if you do send something in, it's really helpful to have like a Post-it note on the item saying, this one has a problem with this, because you can send 3 force probes in, and it's really great to know which one has which problem.
And if you have multiple sensors, make sure you send the right ones in, because I've gotten customers that'll send in 4 dissolved oxygen probes for repair, and they accidentally sent one that was perfectly fine and had to then send in another one later because they sent the wrong one in. So the other thing to note with cabled sensors is one of the big problems that we see that decreases their life is basically how the cables are stored. So with the LabQuest sensors, people are very prone to just wrap the cable around the sensor itself. And that can actually weaken the electrical contents internally, and essentially over time severing them and making the sensor unusable and in many cases non-repairable. So we highly recommend kind of accordion folding the cables, and if you could get Velcro ties, those are fantastic. Temperature sensors are the ones that we see this with the most. There's just something about their form factor that makes students want to wrap the cable around them. Broken BTA and BTD tabs, most times sensors can still be used with those broken tabs. You just have to make sure it's careful because it can plug out easier. And by the tab, we're talking about that little white leg that comes off of it there. I'm not even sure if Sugru is still made, but that was what we would recommend. That's not a repair that we do. It's one that we recommend you doing.
If it's broken off, the thing will still work, except that it won't stay in the connector very well, so you accidentally pull it out.
It can pull out very easily.
Hmm.
The good thing is kind of what Dave was talking about. The majority of our sensors don't require special storage. It really comes down to a lot of the chemistry and biology ones. Things like photo gates, force sensors, anything like that. The big thing is just make sure that they're clean and dry before you store them. And they should have a really good long life for them.
The other thing about storage, I'll say, and this has happened a few times, storing the sensors in the chemical storage cabinet can be an utter disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally, the rust and corrosion can be just amazing. People have sent us things that we can't even hardly recognize what it is. It's so corroded because you've got it stored next to all this acid. It's a problem.
Yeah, it's one of the things I always recommend getting the clear plastic shoe boxes to store sensors in. I had a shoebox that I had all my sensors, each type of sensor in for storage. That made life a lot easier. And so what you might find is you might be, if you're at a lucky school where they're upgrading and you're getting all new stuff, your stuff still works. What do you do with it? So a couple of things, we always recommend reaching out to the district and seeing if there's other schools in the area that could use that equipment, or any outreach programs that might be around there. If they are broken or can't be used anymore, it's best to take them to an electronic recycling place. There's some places, if you go to the EPA website, they have a great list of resources to be able to find an electronics recycler near you. So the other great thing we have is a lot of video resources. We have done, gosh, by now, probably hundreds of webinars, and we have lots of other videos of how-tos and things on our website. So if you go under our resources tab on the website, there's a link to videos there. You will also see just below that two things is the product manuals, because a lot of times you'll find all of these sensors and they won't have any paperwork with them. So you can actually, we have PDFs and websites of all of the product manuals available on our website. You can go through the list of products just under that product manuals tab, or you can go to the actual product page itself and find it under the support tab. And that is Ed. Are there any other questions? Let me scroll back to see if we have questions that we got and did not answer.
Let me ask a question for our person, Dylan. Dylan, are we sure that we'll have all the chat questions saved? I remember one time I was on a webinar, and when I quit the webinar, the chat messages went away. So I want to make sure we have them captured somehow.
Yes, we have them captured, and I'm going to email them to you after this.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. So we have Ali asking about a free version of Lab. We have a lot of free labs available on our website. Many of them you can find on the sensor pages themselves.
In fact, I think every sensor has a sample lab or two that are meant to be examples of using it.
Matt, about AP biology labs, please contact me. Don't listen to Fran. Fran's a physicist. I love Fran. Um, let's see here. Projectile launcher, time of flight videos. Links. Projectile launcher. Now, sadly, we are, well, sadly for you, good for us, we are closed on the weekends. So no chat or phone calls, but please do email us. All right. And yes, Matt, biology@vernier.com is how you can get a hold of me. Do you have any real world connections, meaning a list or resources about how real scientists, engineers use these in their careers? That's a really good question, Brian. I don't know if we have a specific list. I know we've been working on some, as we've updated some labs, we're adding some more real world connections to go in with NGSS alignment. A lot of times the thing I talk about with sensors, and I talk about this a lot with environmental science, is that when you're teaching environmental science out in the field, a environmental scientist is very infrequently going to actually using a thermometer out there because of the fact of it can break easily and it takes a long time for them to get the data points. With the temperature probe, you get a lot more quicker readings. You also can have that ability to graph the data, and it's going to be more realistic of what people are actually doing in the field and the equipment they're using. In fact, I can say the majority of our sensors from environmental science are centered around professional grade sensors and us figuring out a way to make them at an educational price point. Do you have any other?
Oh,
Okay. Saw someone. Environmental science. We have an environmental science starter package. My key sensors for environmental science are always dissolved oxygen, conductivity, temperature, and light and color are also a good one. We also have a little weather sensor that I absolutely love, and it's not just because it's my idea. And conductivity probes sometimes do need to be calibrated. If you have the LabQuest version of conductivity probe, I do recommend calibrating it. Some of the ranges can get a little goofy on it. I have noticed that over time. Yeah, Keisha, with LabQuest 2s, they do have slow startups to begin with. That I would actually check your software on the LabQuest 2s. That is most likely probably what is going on with that. Do you have Vernier labs that are specific for AP? We actually have an entire book specifically for AP Chem. So I would definitely, you can contact us at, you can contact chemistry at chemistry@vernier.com. You might notice a pattern in our emails to be able to get a hold of us. That they'll be able to get you connected with the right book.
or on the website, there's the table
Yeah.
of contents and I think a sample lab or two from that
Mhm.
book. So, and in fact, every book, I believe there's a sample lab and the table of contents is there.
And
And,
we also list what sensor you need
oh
to
yeah,
use
there's
for
a
each
table
one.
of content by sensor, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the shutdowns is the big problem with LabQuest 2, as I found. All right. So, Dylan, are we
Yes.
all right?
So as you all spoke, I dropped everyone's names into a random name generator, and today's winner of a Go Direct temperature probe is going to be Charlotte M. So congratulations, Charlotte. I'm going to email you to get some shipping information. So keep an eye out for an email from me. It'll be from someone with an @Vernier email. So if you don't see it in your inbox, check your spam. But congratulations. I'm going to drop a survey link into the chat. We would love to hear from you, see what topics you would like explored, hear what we can change. So let me drop that right now. It should also pop up when you leave the webinar. So that's all for me. And congratulations, Charlotte.
Yeah, and thank you all for attending. We do have a website specifically about found technology because we get this question so often and so much. So there's a link on this page. You can also just reach out to us at support@Vernier by phone, email, chat, any of the above. So thank you all for joining us.
Bye now. Have a great rest of your day.